Joining in is Ravi Uppal. He's the chairman, Syscall, and the former managing director and group CEO at Jindal Steel. Mr. Uppal, I'm going to begin with you. In your time as the head of GSPL, India was always complaining about the issue of steel dumping. But today we're seeing India selling steel to China and even beyond to other countries. Do you think that the Indian steel sector has now found a permanent market overseas?
Been a net exporter for the last couple of years. The Indian steel capacity has risen to a level of nearly 140 million tons. And last year they produced finished steel more than 100 million tons. And their export has always been on the hit list of the Indian industry. And I think everything is going well for the Indian industry to be very competitive. Especially our integrated steel plants are adopting the best of the technologies. They have come off age, the cost is very competitive, and I think that India has every case to go for exports. And if they're exporting to China, it should come as no surprise. The Chinese industry in the first 6 months of this year, have made a big recovery. Their lowest point for the month of February. But after that, right up to June, July, the steel production in China has really picked up. They come back to the old volumes of nearly 80-85 million tons a month. And in this effort, they wanted to import the iron ore, they wanted to import the semi-finished goods, and that is precisely what they have done from India. They have not bought from us fully finished steel, but they've been buying the semis, what we call as billets, ingots, rounds, which they use to produce the final product. So I think India is very well poised for exports, be it China, Japan, Korea, or it is the West European market. The West European steel industry has really not done well in the recent months, partly because of COVID, and now they suddenly have a demand for finished products of steel, and I think they can look up to India. India is well poised to export steel both in semi-finished form and fully finished form.
Sure. Mr. Uppal, what do you think in terms of prices as well, now that they're at import parity, any room for further hikes? And also, how closely do you feel with, we take cues from the Chinese steel prices?
The prices of steel, if they will go up further, is going to depend on two things. What is the demand and supply situation? And also the prices of the raw material. When I talk about demand, it's basically both domestic demand as well as export demand. So even if there is a bit of a slowdown in export, I think the domestic market is really picking up now. A lot of projects are taking off. Automotive industry has got into full gear. I mean, a company like Maruti have decided to work all 7 days in a week for the next couple of weeks. So that's a good sign. So I don't think that for India, the export demand is going to fall. It may not grow, but it's going to remain flat. India exported about 5.5 million tons of steel in the first 5 months. That's not a bad sign. Our imports have fallen. So I think on total, the Indian steel industry has a good promise from the domestic sources as well as from exports. And the prices will depend on demand and supply. In the last 2 months, the demand has been very firm, and therefore prices have picked up. It will also depend as to what the price, what are the prices of the iron ore, coking coal, the input material, and the iron ore has really picked up in the recent months. And India did almost export, record export of iron ore and the things like the pellets, etc., in the last 3 to 4 months. So I think the prices may go up. They may stand. If the Chinese imports come down. Then of course, there may not be much of an upsurge in the prices. But I think they will at least stay at the levels that we have if they don't increase.
Right. Mr. Uppal, how closely do you think that Indian steel prices take cues from the Chinese steel prices?
Well, they do get influenced by the international prices, be it from China or from elsewhere. But there's one thing I like to mention here. The prices in the domestic market are not only dependent on the export demand. It also depends on how much supply we are able to do. India's total capacity, production capacity is about 140 million tons, and we produce about 108, 110 million tons of crude steel. And 62 to 64% of this comes from organized sector, what we call as the integrated steel plant. They have made a quick recovery. They're back on their feet. They're trying to sort of really flog the horse as much as they can. The capacity utilization of some of the units is between 85 to 90% already now. But the unorganized sector, still taking time to come into production, and they make up nearly 35% of India's production. Things like, the basic semis and TMT, wire rod, these are products, a lot of them are done in the unorganized sector. So, the prices may have a tendency to go up until the unorganized sector also comes into full production. They have been slow to act because they didn't have labor, they didn't have resources. But I think they're getting into the act. And if they get into production, that would also arrest any further growth in the price levels. So it's a function of both demand and supply. Supply has to go up for the Indian prices to stabilize. India's prices are already higher than the lower compared to the international prices as of now. So therefore, there's no threat of much imports. The imports in the first 4 months of the year have been very low, just about 1.5 to 1.6 million tons. So I think all total, the Indian prices will stabilize if the unorganized sector comes into full production, which should happen before the end of this calendar year.
ఈ వీడియో మీకు నచ్చినట్లయితే లైక్ చేయండి, మీకు తెలిసిన వారితో షేర్ చేయండి.